Hey guys, I don't really know where this video is going to go, so let's just get to it. I still have some stuff to bring in from that estate, and more recently I acquired this from Habitat for Humanity's resale shop. According to some feedback I got when I posted a photo of it, it is from the 90s. It's a Craftsman tool chest cabinet thing. Bunch of sliding drawers up top. Top flips up, and a larger pull-out drawer down here, and some storage down below. This is something I have sorely needed for a long time. I was looking at buying a new one, a Husky or something like that, but you probably know these things can get pretty darn expensive. Not that this was cheap. I probably paid a little bit too much, honestly, but Habitat for Humanity is one of my favorite shops to go to. Probably more than half of our furniture came from there. And I never know what I'm going to find when I go there. So I want to get this inside. I bought it a week ago, but the weather has been up, down, and sideways. It was 45 degrees earlier today. Now it's dipping below freezing and snowing again. I think I might have a small window to get this inside into the basement. On my own, I will try to manage it. Just go down the cement steps into the basement. And then right behind it, I don't know if I showed this before or not. This is going to be the top of my new workbench, I hope. It's 8 feet by 3 feet. Yeah, we're going big. Partly because TV chassis can be really deep when you factor in the picture tube and all that. And some of the test equipment I have is pretty deep too. Most workbenches I've seen or designs for them are more like 2.5 feet deep, but I'm going full 36 on this. I got some experience building that smaller one recently, so we'll see what we can do. I happen to have a whole bunch of 2x6s left. When I rebuilt the front steps, I thought I'd be smart, and for each step, instead of using a 2x12, I'd use two 2x6s. But I later realized that was a bad idea because of warping and twisting, and people would trip on them, so I've got a whole bunch of these. So that's what I'm using. Having a little bit of trouble finding hardware for them, like that kit that I showed was for 2x4s. These are 2x6s, those won't work. So I'm looking for some steel hangers. I'm going to do a little bit of searching online, just to save myself from trouble of having to do any joinery. That's better. Would have helped if I'd realized something earlier on, which is 2 of the wheels, the ones on the left side, swivel. The 2 on the right side do not. So you have to pivot on this side. I was trying to slide this around down here, and it wasn't going too well until I noticed that. Well, my friend helped me lug in the 8 foot by 3 foot new workbench top. I've already got some of the supporting legs and framing cut. We've got steel angle brackets to reinforce everything. Now there's a question of where do we put it? Options are few. At first I thought I'd put it along this wall, but the 7 foot mark is around about here. I would have to cut it back to about 7.5 feet or less to just clear everything here. And then I'd have to be wary of bumping into this stuff. So, other than putting it where the old workbench is, which I don't want to do, it's here. It's got to go in this against this wall. And I figure I should peg it to that back corner. And then if I leave this drywall here, hopefully there's some 2x4s back there. I may have to cut a little bit away to explore. I can put shelving in here and put test equipment on it. All the lumber has been cut. Basically, we've got 4 2x6s 8 feet long. 2 of them are just going to run the entire length of the top, and then there'll be a shelf at some distance to be determined below that. We have 6 legs. Going to put, because it's such a long span, I didn't think a leg in each corner was going to be sufficient. So we're going to do 1 in each corner and then 2 more in the dead middle. I'm going to use joist hangers to also run a rib across the middle. Then there'll be 1 at each end. So across the top of the plywood, or across the piece of plywood, there'll be 8-foot long 2x6 on either of the long dimensions, and then 3 pieces going this way. I decided I would leave a little bit of an overhang, so I cut them, I think, 29 inches. And then they're going to sit in between, on the inside of these 2x6s, so that's going to add 3 inches or so to make up, 32 inches. So we should have about a 4-inch overhang on the edge of the bench. I'm not going to put any kind of pegboard or anything like that. I mean, this is going to be super basic. We're going to make a square frame with 1 extra support in the middle, piece of plywood on top, 6 legs going down, and then the same deal halfway down or so to reinforce it. And at every corner, we are going to use one of these on the inside corner to hold everything together. And we're going to use these guys. So rather than the same company, Simpson Strong Tie, has made that little bench kit I put together. But they recommend these for all of their bracing materials. So rather than something that uses a Phillips head like wood screw, these have a hex head. Thanks to my trusty helpers, I got this whole area cleaned out, and I'm starting to put together the top of the workbench. I hope it will start to make more sense now. So that is one piece that will go along the top. There'll be another 8-foot long board here, and then there'll be 3 boards across, and I'm using angle brackets in the corners, and for the center one I will use a joist hanger like so. And I'm building it upside down right now. I'll flip it over and put the top on it, and then I'll make a second one, not a second one, but second one for a shelf partway down. And then the legs, I haven't entirely decided where they'll attach. What do you think, Jupes? Am I doing a good job? Alright, so one side's done. This is going to be the top. So I've got the joist hanger going down below. Plywood's going to sit right on top of this. And I just made a last second judgment call. Okay. To bring this end board in a little bit, so I'll have an overhang here as well as in front, so I could clamp something onto that edge if I so desire. Now the interesting thing will be to see how is it to work on the inside when the other surfaces are secured. I guess it shouldn't be too bad. So once that is done, I'll see about putting on legs, and then the last thing I'll do will be do the second tier. That one I'm a little bit vague about. I mean, if this is sturdy enough, I don't have to put a lower shelf, because I might want to, at some point, put drawers or some type of custom thing. Like I might want to put Variac and isolation transformer mounted underneath the workbench. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, I certainly have all the lumber I need to do it, but I don't know that I want to do it just yet. I don't want to commit to it. Also don't have another sheet of plywood, so if I frame out a shelf, I don't have anything to put on top of it. Made another slight change. As I was screwing in this board, I realized, hey, instead of having the angle brackets on this side, I could put them on the outside, and I could move this back. I went back 4 inches. Does 2 things for me. One, again, provides overhang, so I could put a clamp on, vise, or bench lamp, but it also means when I come to put the legs on, put it on the inside. And then I've got plenty to work with. I can drive lag bolts in from either side. I can put an angle bracket over here if I want to keep things square. In other words, more flexibility. The more surfaces that come together, the better, the stronger it's going to be, rather than doing what I was doing at this end. And it's easy enough to undo. I just need to take these 3 bolts on, just flip the whole thing 180, and then move it back 4 inches. And then this will be done. Now let's talk about the top of the workbench. I went with an 8 foot by 3 foot piece of 3/4 inch thick premium plywood. What does premium means? It means the actual face surface of it is pretty decent wood. Just minimal knots, relatively smooth. What I ended up doing on the other workbench is what I'm going to do with this, which is to lightly sand it with 220, throw on some Varathane water-based sanding sealer, dries in a couple hours, another bit of light sanding, and then this was something new I used for the first time, triple thick water-based polyurethane. Supposedly 1 coat of this is equivalent to 3 coats of their older product, which they sell right next to this, and the price difference, this is about $1 more per can. I think it was like $19 versus $18. And if this really works that well, I don't see any reason to buy the other stuff. Although, of course, you do go through this faster. It's thick because it's thicker, and you glop it on thicker. But yeah, with the old stuff, they recommend 3 coats, and you have to wait for it to dry, and it takes a long time. But this, glop it on thick. You do it thick enough and have your board level, it will self-level fairly well. Couple hours, it's dry to the touch. Legs. Thought about it a bit, tried out a few different configurations, and ended up going with this. Partly because, well, originally I thought I would do this, so I'd have a lot of meat on this leg going against this main board here. But then I got to thinking, if I do put a lower shelf and I want to slide stuff in and get stuff out, I don't want a big wide board. I'd rather have it going this way. A couple things. If I leave it like that, of course this is at an angle, and I want it to be up, so I got a little scrap of wood there, so we get that supported on both ends. And then I want to get it flush with what's going to be the top of the workbench, so I have a scrap of wood here. Slide that forward so everything meets. And I'll use a couple clamps to hold this in place, drive some 3-inch deck screws into that to kind of hold it together, and then use another one of these angle brackets, drive a bunch of screws. And if I wanted to, I could drive in some screws on the other side of this, but that's on there pretty solid. And I also got to thinking, after I get these legs on and I want to stand this up, it might be a good idea to put some kind of feet on here, so it's not just the end of this board digging into the carpet. Not that I care about the carpet, but just to get the support a little bit better. So I got some scraps outside. Maybe I'll take some 2x6s and cut some boards that are like 3 or 4 inches wide and just screw them from underneath to give it sort of some feet. It'll give me some extra height on it too. Okay, we have feet. I cut up some of the leftover 2x6s, sanded them with 220 grits, put on a couple coats of heavy-duty polyurethane, let it set up, and then kind of countersunk some wood screws and sunk them in. So why did I do that? I know I'm going to have to move this occasionally to clean, or something will fall behind there or whatever. So I figure with these it'll be a bit more manageable to slide around on the carpet as needed. Alright, now I gotta flip it back over, and then we can start working on the top surface. And as usual, the Home Improvement Center, there's always something new that's better, faster, stronger, easier, whatever. I have not used this before. I usually use a Varathane sanding sealer, but they were out, so I got Minwax sanding sealer. I believe it's very similar. It says it dries in an hour. I think it's water-based. I will find out in a moment. Basically, I slop some of this on, let it dry, and then sand. And then put on the final coat. This helps to seal in the grain and fill in minor defects. So, you know, whenever I can, especially on a project like this, I'm trying to also try out new products, try out new techniques, experiment. So when I'm working on something that actually matters, like a piece of fine furniture or something, I have some experience with available products in my area. And now we wait for this to dry. It's been about an hour. It's still a little tacky to the touch. I've got a space heater going. Hopefully accelerate the process. While we wait, let's talk lighting and electricity and wiring. When I first did a house tour, and probably once or twice since, I've talked about this fixture and the way it's wired in and what a mess things are down here. Yeah, I could replace the ballast and probably get this fixture working again. It's a piece of junk, and I would just as soon get it out of here. Plus, I want to fix some wiring mistakes we'll get to in a moment. First, though, let's back up. I will try not to get you guys too dizzy. I'll move the camera slowly. Generally speaking, the house is not laid out bad. There's a breaker box with like 16 circuits in it, 100 amp service, and it's pretty sensibly done. Like there's one breaker, I think, just for the washer and dryer, one just for the furnace, one for the kitchen appliances, one for each of the major rooms. The basement is the one that's a little ugly. As near as I can make out. So we have two conduits coming back this way. And we get to this point and they branch off. These two go upstairs. One continues on. So I hope there's two circuits coming in here, two separate breakers. Which would mean this basically is for this entire back half of the basement. Now there's a junction box back there where there's a lot going on one of them, which is a conduit that comes right back this way. And then bends around and goes to this junction box and goes to some BX cable and eventually finds its way over to that outlet, which I'm using for my tube testing station. Technically, not technically, but code in Chicago is that you use conduit. You can use BX, which is this flexible armor cable for runs of, I believe, less than 3 feet, or 3 feet and less. So that is in violation. Okay. I would just as soon relocate that anyways, because this wall might come down at some point, or I might like the outlet better over here, so I might end up redoing it anyways. Okay, well, let's take a look at this box and see if we can figure out what's going on. So there's a lot going on in here. I'm not sure what code is, but we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things going into this box. There's got to be a lot of wire nuts in there. So we know we're pretty sure we know this one coming back goes over to the outlet over that way. Okay. Now there's also a light switch here, which controls a light way back in that corner, this light in the middle, and then the light above the new workbench, which is no longer functioning. So, goes up, BX, into a box, conduit going that way to that light fixture, which then goes over to that light fixture. So that's cool. This is a little bit longer probably than code allows, but oh well. And then another piece of BX going to this light fixture. See, that's where the problem is where's power going into that light switch coming from? You would think that there is a conduit run from this box to that switch, but there isn't, not directly. Well, basically they're using this light fixture as a junction box. So out of this BX, we've got 3 wires. White, neutral, red, and purple. The red is going to black, so that's hot, and the purple is the switched wire, I do believe. Yeah, because purple goes to this wire nut, which goes to a wire which goes up to the ballast, and the other white wire is neutral. So this, I believe, is power in. So there's another piece of BX that goes to this box. So one BX on this side going to the light switch, BX on that side going to this junction box. I hope that this is just used for these 3 light fixtures and nothing else. Now, conduit going out. I believe this goes over and around all the way over to that corner of the basement and upstairs into an outlet in the corner of the living room. This, I believe, goes over to the outlets, and that's where my old workbench is. There are outlets down below it. So it's not switched. This is not switched. This, I don't know. This snakes over the top of the light fixture, goes there, and goes there somewhere to something. I think it drops down behind that drywall. I need to get into that corner and see what the heck's going on. I should be able to keep power in half of the basement and run an extension cord. So we have basement bathroom, basement carpet, that should be that area, and then basement question mark, which is probably this side. And also basement oven, which is, I think the washer and the dryer and the oven might be on the same circuit. So let's, hey, apparently that was it. Alright, so that killed light over there. But we still have light over here. And the furnace should still be on. That outlet should still be live, so I can put an extension cord there. Yeah, everything's off down here now. Okay, alright. At least that sort of makes some sense. Yeah, there's a little bit of measly light that comes in through these glass block windows, but not enough to really do any work. Well, the only thing I gotta do is wait for my wife to get back, so I have a car. Then go over to the hardware store because I want to pick up a couple things. One of which is, I guess, somewhat controversial. What's controversial? The type of fasteners to use for the wires. In North America, it's been tradition to use wire nuts. I'm not going to use wire nuts. I want to use what they seem to be using in Europe predominantly, and you can get them here. They have different names and seams in different areas, but they're push-on connectors. Especially when there's different wire gauges and some are stranded and some are solid. I really don't like using wire nuts. So I'm going to pick up some of those, and we'll talk more about them when I get them. And try to find that junction box I bought a while ago. Success. Actually wasn't too bad. I'll tell you, the power turned off. So all that just to have this go to the switched light fixture. And now I've got all this BX and wire hanging down that needs to go somewhere. So if it wasn't for that one purple wire, I would just eliminate this BX and just run this right into there, and we're done. Boy. But I don't want to rewire the whole basement right now, so I'll just get my other junction box and mount it, as I said, somewhere up in here, and tuck all these wires away. Meanwhile, it's setting up nicely. And now we can take this out and throw it away. I think they just drove a couple Phillips screws up into the floor joists. Just got back from the Home Improvement Center. There's a new box, and I'm going to put some outlets in it. I didn't get quite the right cover. I'll have to go back and pick another one up. But I can make this work for now. I wanted to cover these outlets. They sell ones that have these openings that fit better. And then I got these guys. You guys can argue amongst yourselves about the merits of these. I don't want to get into it, but this is an alternative to using the wire nuts. I figure if I don't want to have to cut this stuff, I can put the box somewheres around here. Then I can install my light fixture on these floor joists, and I'll have outlets to plug it into, and if I want to use these drop lights as needed, I can plug them into that as well. That should all be pretty easy to do. I will just need to get some light while I do it. I'll be cutting these back and restripping them, and I'll be using these to connect the wires up. Simple enough, I hope. After yet another trip to the Home Improvement Center, I have the type of cover I should have gotten before. So I'm going to be mounting outlets in there. At first I was wondering, well, how do you get that in there when these ears stick out? I've noticed they break away, like so much this electrical stuff does. If you've never done electrical work, when you get these boxes, pop these out to run your BX or conduit or whatnot into there. Likewise, there were breakouts for these holes. That's where linesman's pliers can come in handy. These guys, here's all the ears I broke off the one outlet. One thing I don't like is these outlets come with screws with a captive kind of speed nut thing on the other side, so the screws don't fall out. But when you get them mounted inside this, that's not threaded, I don't believe, so I'll have to dig up some nuts or something to hold it in there securely. But this is the idea. When I'm done, I will have 4 outlets up there so I can plug in whatever I like, and it'll be controlled by the switch, and that's fine. So much happier to have that lamp out of the way. I should have done that years ago. I also have some clamps, rather than using a bent nail like they did over there, that I'll get that secured and out of the way. I'll have to trim off a lot of this excess wire too. So I'm curious, this is pretty recent looking wiring, the stuff going through the BX. The one going to the light switch. The older though, this is pretty ancient in where it's got paper covering over it. That's decades old. And I don't think I need to secure that, but it looks like a grounding wire. I say that because this whole cable should be ground, but I'll attach it to the box anyways. Just about ready to put it all back together and get the power back on. Nice thing about these is you can put some of the wires in and then make a sub-assembly, and then I just need to push in the final 2 and hook up my grounds and mush it all together. And that is the only real thing I dislike about house wiring, is just cramming, just the physical nature of it, cramming all the wires in with sharp metal, not crushing the wires and such. The actual figuring out how the circuits work I don't find too intimidating. It's just you want to leave the wires long enough so you can work with them, but not too long such that you can't shove the box back together. It drives me nuts. That was very satisfying. Getting that old fixture out of here, and now a switched socket. So we have an outlet over behind the bench that is not switched, and those are switched. So now I got the freedom to do whatever I want for overhead bench lighting without having to touch any of the wiring. So I will try getting that fixture up there and see what kind of light output we get. Now it does not have a cord, but I'll simply attach one to it. I'll do that before I bother mounting it, so we get an idea of how much light this kicks out. There we go. Not too bad. Not incredible, but I have it. It's nifty. It kind of looks like the lunar surface. So yeah, I'll throw it up there. Kind of get it centered right over the top of the workbench. That was an insane amount of work. Of course, the mounting holes for the light fixture didn't line up with the floor joist, so I had to put some boards in between. Some mounting holes are about here. Luckily I had a bunch of spare lumber. But drilling over your head and driving in screws over your head is not any fun. And then this is mounted by slotted screws, so I had to put 4 of them in, all lined up perfectly so they could go through the big hole and then slide over. But it is done. It is finally done. And yeah, that is actually a respectable amount of light over the work surface. So I think we're in good shape. Just got to tighten down the screws a little bit and pop the cover back over the lights. Tuck up the extension cord a little bit, or not the extension cord, the lamp cord I added to it. And then we are done. With the cover on, I think you can see what they call that, a floating cloud light or something like that. That was all way more work than I thought it would be to get this electrical done, but I am so glad that it is done, as is the main construction on the workbench. So I think this is a good time to wrap up this video. Coming up, we're going to decide what equipment we're going to put out here and where the parts going to go, what's going to go on this wall. I've got some stuff you guys haven't seen yet. I got a new tool cart. I've got a new bookcase. I've got some equipment. And I'm really itching to get started on projects. So be looking for all that coming up very soon. Thanks for watching.